Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Marketing Bites Restaurant Growth Unwrapped. I'm your host, Brian Siemienas, the Vice President of Restaurant Solutions for Nift. Today, I welcome our guest, Randy Sharpe, CEO of Wahlburgers. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to today's conversation and love your background down there in Memphis, where you are today.
Yeah, beautiful pyramid, Bass Pro in Memphis, Tennessee. So,
Fantastic. So, throughout your career, you've held operational leadership positions with some great companies: Elephant Bar Restaurant, Mimi's Cafe, Romano's Macaroni Grill, Chevy's, El Torito Mexican Restaurants, before becoming CEO at Experience Restaurant Group. How did all of these experiences shape the executive you are today?
wow. The best way I could describe that is it taught me how to be well-rounded. When you first start off in the business and you're in operations, you feel, as most operators do, that they're the only ones that exist out there, right? And I do firmly still believe that operations is what drives the bus, and it's the most important department in any organization. But throughout every one of those positions, I can tell you how I learned how to work with the other departments just a little bit more, a little bit better, where you finally get to the C-suite where you clearly understand the complexities of every department and how they, you know, add, add to be the big piece of the pie to actually really bring it all together. And that's, I guess, the best learn from is it's not just about your department. I think when I first was an operator at Elephant Bar, I can remember just wondering where everyone was on a Saturday while I'm working in the restaurant at night and there's a POS down or whatnot. And then you learn everyone has lives and they actually put their time in, but it was just on a different time scale than you. So
Yeah, no, I mean, all of us in the restaurant space, while we have lives, we're still at 24/7 and,
yep.
depending on time zones. And
Hmm.
maybe if you're in the right brand, you may get a couple of the big holidays off. But outside of that,
Yeah. Here and
we
there,
definitely
right?
keep,
So
yeah, we definitely know how to keep our phones on for when there's problems out in the field. But
absolutely.
talking about today, Wahlburgers. You currently have
Hmm.
just over 40 locations. Congrats on the recent opening in Oklahoma. I know that's a new market for you. But for
Yep.
those who've never experienced the brand, can you explain what they're missing?
Sure. Well, it was started back in 2011, and it's really a family. The best way to describe Wahlburgers, our full service model, is a family driven bar and grill where you have much more than just a burger you can get on the menu. It was really driven by that, wanting to bring families together at the dinner table, and that was the story behind how Wahlburgers was started. It really is. It's if you really think family friendly bar and grill, with a more complex menu than you would expect, full service bar, you're in a really vibrant, high energy environment. That's Wahlburgers for you.
Okay. So you did Randy simplified a little bit. You're right. I mean, your description was accurate, but you have a unique family structure there. So,
Oh yeah,
a lot of
very.
brands are started by family. So let's, for those who don't know, obviously Chef Paul Wahlberg was one who's set to create the restaurant. And where it got interesting is he brought his two brothers in, Donnie, who obviously is created one of the most famous boy bands in the world. And then his other
Mhm.
brother, Mark, who some would argue is similar in the movie and from
Mhm.
a movie actor standpoint. So a little bit interesting. You certainly have three very different personalities, but what's it like working with these three individuals?
Well, Paul's been in the restaurant business. He's a restaurant guy. Um, he's in, works our hours, spends time in the restaurants, and that's what he knows and what he's grown up and done. Mark is an entrepreneur, and that's the one thing that I think you talked about, this international celebrity who he is, but he's an entrepreneur. He's a majority owner of Wahlburgers. Not only this, but several other business ventures that he has, and he's very the thing that people wouldn't know. Um, he's very involved, meaning he's very interested in what's going on in the day-to-day operations, very interested in the strategic planning of the company. But he's also very, open to letting, us as restaurateurs run the business. But the fact that he's so involved makes things so much easier because he's always in the know on what we have going on and what opportunities we have to grow. and what strategic opportunities we have to maybe pivot on different things. He's been strategic in the last year since I've been here. Just he's been just instrumental in helping me help really firmly define the brand and the different types of opportunities we have to grow. We have four basic business models where a year ago you couldn't define any of them. It was just, hey, there's X amount of restaurants. Some do this, some do that. So we really firmly defined what our different business models are, and he's been very helpful on and very supportive on saying, yeah, this is great. Now we know where we can grow and when we can grow and how we can grow with it. So
Okay, talking about that growth, you're currently 40 locations. What's the makeup company franchise, and what's the plan moving forward in the future between the makeup?
there's six corporate locations. Their balance of the locations are franchise or licensed opportunities. We are in three countries right now, soon to be four countries. We're opening up the largest Wahlburgers to date in Puerto Rico in May, which will be a 6,000+ square foot beautiful bar and grill, which I call it like the Disney World of Wahlburgers. It's going to have everything. It's going to have an indoor outdoor bar, and it's in the San Juan Mall, so it's a perfect location. For the first one in Puerto Rico, we're going to have five in the next 2 years. We're in Australia, well, technically four countries because Australia and New Zealand. I wrap them up as our Australia counterpart, and then we're in the Toronto airport. But as far as growth, that's the current layout. So we have quite a bit of franchise growth in front of us, which is exciting. And there's several licensing opportunities, which is just a smaller version of the franchising opportunity. We also have some corporate opportunities. I mentioned where I'm sitting right now in Memphis, Tennessee. We're getting ready to embark on a partnership with Bass Pro. They have full service restaurants in several of their venues, and they're looking for a partner to help take that to the next level. So we have one franchise operation in the Pyramid Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're looking at growing that, and that'll be a corporate growth strategy there. So.
Okay. One of the things the brand had is a partnership with Hy-Vee, and you had
Mhm.
a number of kiosk type locations in the grocery stores. Recently announced that that was ending,
Yep.
which will result in a reduction in the number of locations. But you mentioned it allows you to better focus on your core restaurants. Can you elaborate
Yeah.
further on this partnership and what's the impact of that, and what caused the changes?
Sure. Well, first of all, Hy-Vee has been a partner of Wahlburgers for some time now. They originally started out with full service restaurants. They had a handful of full service restaurants, not inside the grocery stores. I wasn't there, don't know why, but there was opportunities. Obviously, they're great grocers. The restaurant business is a completely different business than the grocery business. So they fast forward. They have one freestanding restaurant right now today, and we're actually taking that over this coming Saturday. It actually becomes a corporate location in Mall of America, which we're super excited about because we think there's just a tremendous opportunity to grow that business there. The rest ended up being from their full service restaurant model to essentially kiosks. Most of these grocery stores these days, you walk in and it's just like, huge, right? Like it's like almost like a Costco-esque type experience now. And there's a kiosk and there's a Wahlburgers part of it. And then there's obviously several other different food offerings. But the confusion part is it's not really a Wahlburgers experience. We have four different business models I mentioned. We have full service model, we have a counter or limited service model. We actually have a drive-through we're testing right now, which is obviously a sit down and a drive-through model. And then we have what we call non-traditional. But every one of those four has its own space, and it's clearly defined. We're not one of many. We're not in a food court where you could have one of many different choices. We have our own space, and that's the thing that we didn't have. What turned in with Ivy. So you became kind of. I mean, it's a tough word, but it really is the accurate word. Is where the brand started to become diluted, where you have these beautiful restaurants that people spend a lot of money, franchise operators and corporate to build, and you have this, manual this thick on what you're supposed to operate, how you're supposed to operate, but that didn't fit because it wasn't that. It was a completely different business model. So the business model of Hy-Vee kind of went. left, and I don't know when it went left. I wasn't here for that, but it wasn't very successful for them or for us. And it was one of those things where, hey, you never want to say, hey, we're contracting, but it wasn't a giant revenue driver for that grocery chain. It wasn't a giant revenue driver for us, and it was a little confusing. And it definitely didn't fit in any of our four business models that we're tracking right now. So and again, but then you have their full service restaurant that was, they had one left that we thought was, hey, why don't we do this? We'll take that over and we'll run it as a corporate restaurant, take it to new heights. So that's really where things landed. So we're pretty excited about not only that location but our future growth, and we're very excited the fact that we're very defined in how we're going to grow and who we're going to grow with and where we're going to grow with, and it has to fit one of these models. So
Okay, we've both been in the industry, seen the highs and the lows. 2001, 9/11, saw the meltdown in 08, 9, certainly COVID. We all had the honeymoon after COVID. 24 for most brands, not the best year. Started seeing, some challenges. We're hoping 25 is going to turn a little bit better, but we've already unfortunately seen McDonald's, some scary stuff out there.
yep,
Walmart, some really scary stuff last week, and we're starting to see
yep,
the consumers yet again, cut back. What does
yep.
it look like for you guys? And, are you seeing those same headwinds that, appear maybe going a bit longer than we all had hoped they would in 25?
I don't think anyone can escape the macroeconomic opportunities that are out there, and you see them. I think it affects everyone differently. Well, the beginning of 24 was a little tough. That was when I first came on board, and I think there was a brand identity. I don't want to call it a crisis, but it definitely was a brand identity moment that we had to figure out, and we did. So about mid-year, we actually start tracking pretty well, and that's carried over into January. We were still up in sales. So I think we're a little bucking the trend in a good way. And I think it has to do with the fact that we made some strategic changes throughout 24 that's yielded significant benefits and continues to yield benefits. But I still keep my eye on everything going on, and I still have the same concerns that everyone else has out there. And you have to always, look at it because there's things that you can control. There's things that you either have done or can do that will either benefit your brand or hurt your brand. I'm trying to stay away from the ones that hurt your brand as much as possible and learn from your own mistakes. But I think the macro stuff is just there, right? And there's a lot of it. And every time there's, no matter what side of the fence you fall on from a politics standpoint, every time there's a change, there's always a little uncertainty, at least in the beginning, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, a lot of that uncertainty out there just because, and there's a little anxiety in the first quarter spending, but happy to report we're up, which is a big deal for us. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. From a standpoint, you mentioned a lot of the work you did last year with the brand. Have you guys had to heavy up a little bit on your value proposition, or how have you had played in there? Because I know some brands are going $5, others like
Yeah.
the Chili's, the Applebee's, and others are letting their brand stand for itself and are thankfully successful with being able to do that. Where do you guys fall in that spectrum?
We haven't gone aggressive when it comes to value. We think value is an equation. What we have done is re-upped step specials, new introductions to the menu, limited time offerings that bring excitement to the brand. Most important thing we did was mid-year, we challenged ourselves, do we have the best burger? Because, there's burger in your name. It's not the best burger out there, then you're missing something. Starting with the burger patty, starting with all of our products, our buns, everything. And one day it was 38 patties that were a blind tasting. See how you feel after you've done that tasting, but to say, are we serving the best quality of everything? And we went from 38 to 10 and to 5 to 2, and then the reveal. No, and we end up switching a lot of our products because we wanted to focus on better quality. That's really where we put, we put our effort at and our energy on, is really making sure we have the best quality products. And then when we engage in introducing new items, which we started in Q3 of last year, want to make sure that those quality items are a big part of it. So we're really speaking to that at this point, and that's really helped yield some benefits that we not only hope for, but we're expecting.
You talked earlier about as you've grown through your career, realizing as you get into the C-suite, all the departments, coming together. And I always joked my two that I'd go arm in arm with were my, counterpart in operations. And you always got to do finance because if you're not good with finance, they'll manage to cut your knees out. But,
That's
you
called
talk about,
visibility in the business, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
So,
do your eyes.
so you talk about the model franchising, and as you guys grow, one of the things that I'm sure you operationally, as well as me, always marketing was that experience and consistency throughout your system. It becomes more challenging as you get the more numbers. What are you
Yep.
guys doing as you grow as you grow in selecting franchisees as well as, ensuring that operational, as you mentioned with the Hy-Vee didn't meet the brand expectations, you moved
Mhm.
on. What are you doing to ensure that that continues as Wahlburgers continues to grow?
Well, we define the brand first and foremost, right? The four business models. And then we came up with a little bit of a slogan. It's the right person, the right place, and the right time. So when we have, yeah, and again, the phone rings every day. Phone rings every day, and we're blessed and have the benefit of having a little bit of star status in our name to help us with people who want to grow. And when someone picks, a territory and they want to grow a franchise, we get looked at, which is great. Sometimes it's people that have never been in the restaurant business before, and I think one of the things, if you were to speak to Mark about this business, the biggest thing he would say is learn from your mistakes, and then also learn from our mistakes as I'm coming in the door. And they grew, what I would say is Wahlburgers grew with some people that maybe they shouldn't have, and they weren't restaurant folks, so you're in it for the wrong reasons. Now we there's a vetting process, and I would love to say we're opening 25 locations this year. We're closer to 14. There is a very big retail deal that is probably a couple of weeks away from being announced that I can't announce today because it's not official. If that happens, it's going to be bigger than 14, but it's also been the vetting process is done. The folks that are going to operate that in conjunction with our corporate, we're going to be partners with them in it. They've been vetted already and they know what they're doing and they speak the same language. And you mentioned finance. One of the things we did is we implemented a new ERP system where we have visibility of everything we're doing now from a finance and accounting standpoint, which we share with our franchisees now, and they're excited about it. So it's just really that whole package of, I call it restaurant 101, right? It's the kind of the table stakes to get in the game here. You have to be a great operator and you have to speak the same language. You have to understand what that language is and understand that, you know, um, in order to you have to have not only great operations, you have to have great visibility in your finance and accounting. You have to have, your culture has to stand for itself. And those things have to match, right? And as we're going through and we're vetting our operators, that's really the focus. So.
As we look at the industry, technology, it's a double-edged sword. Can make life so much easier, but also one of those headaches as you're trying to address things. The tech stack, also can be the biggest headache. From a standpoint, how are you guys utilizing technology, and is that something that you inherited, something that is firing on all cylinders, or is it something that you're going to be looking at and having to make adjustments to?
I think we already made the adjustments. And here's what I would say about technology. I'm a believer and I love it. Sometimes it can be a death by a thousand cuts because everyone has something that could potentially make your business better, but too much of it is going to spend a lot. You're going to spend a lot of money and you're not going to get the results you need. So you have to have technology that works for you. And you have to have technology that works for your team. Meaning, if you're overcomplicating your business and hence your business model, you're going to lose a lot in the translation, and you're not going to be successful there. So, you just have to be smart about what you sign up with, and whatever you sign up with, you have to use. So many people out there will say, "Oh, this is the new thing, and it's going to change our the whole infrastructure," and then they sign up and then wait, we have to do what? And then the implementation comes and it's and it's sitting there and all of a sudden you've just paid. It's like you got a gym membership and you never walked in the door of the gym, right? That's kind of the same thing with technology. Sometimes folks sign these great contracts and they never utilize the product, right? So There was some of that going on when I walked in the door here, to be honest with you, and we've since fixed that.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing always with the technology is when you don't get the frontline employees, whether it's testing, utilizing it, and, get it the support center, headquarters, whatever, company decides. And, to your point, there's nothing worse than writing those checks or being locked into contracts with something you can't use because the operational complexity is just,
Hmm.
too damning to the business.
Agreed.
Okay, from a marketing standpoint, you obviously have a name that, as you
Hmm.
tell your story, what's your marketing approach for the brand?
Well, it was founded on content. It's a content brand, meaning the fact that obviously when the first Wahlburgers was open in 2011, they actually had a TV show to go along with it, which is super exciting and really helped got the name out there. And that's really transitioned to we want a quality operation. We want to stand on our quality, but we are leveraging our star power from Mark and Donnie. They've, and between the two of them, I think they have 50 million followers out there. And, Mark's the majority owner of Wahlburgers, and Donnie's one of the major owners. And he also has a franchise out there in St. Charles. And so they're very invested. So it's great when we talk about our marketing strategy. The social media is a big piece of it. And we have a pretty good tool to help get the word out there on it. So,
Okay, and if you've been on board for a year, brand's been around since 11, as you said. If we could sit down and talk 5 years from now, where do you see the brand from a, location, development, global? What would we hopefully be talking about from your perspective in 5 years?
I think the fact that we've further defined the different business models, but I think you'll have growth. I think the goal is, we're already seeing it in 5 years from now. I'd be very comfortable to say, hey, when we sit down and talk, probably have a handful of the bar and grill full service restaurants that have opened and been successful, but we have all these other avenues that we've clearly defined that we can grow in. And it's not one size fits all anymore. And before, I think it was you're going to open up a Wahlburgers franchise and it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and you need 5,000 square feet and you need this and this. And that's not the case anymore. We can do that still, and it's great. And we are very successful in opening those, but we also can do a 2,000 square foot limited service opportunity in a casino, and we have done that this past year several times already, and it's been very successful. I mentioned the test of the drive-through. This is a big piece, and I think that you'll see that. So I think these four verticals, you'll see several growth opportunities that will continue in 5 years from now. Hopefully, we can say that we've successfully opened X amount in each vertical.
And in each of those verticals, as you talk about the square footage, certainly,
Hmm.
varies. My days in Darden, when Bahama Breeze, very big kitchen, if you're
Hmm.
familiar with that one. When we went to the
Huge.
Orlando airport, I think the whole restaurant was smaller than the kitchen. Are you,
Hmm.
flexing, how much of the core menu, because obviously square footage, can dictate that. Are you going with 100% of the menu in each of the concepts, or are
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
flexing it based on each one?
Great question. So you have full service has a menu. It's the same menu in every full service restaurant. There is some regional favorites out there that some of our franchise operators, even our corporate restaurants, would like to run. That's on a separate insert.
Mhm.
Limited service is what we call our favorites menu, and it is set. And obviously, if someone wants one item versus another item, it's a conversation. But it's a base menu that's the favorites, and it's a more limited version of the menu. Easily executable. Still has our bet. The word favorites for a reason. Um, and it really fits those business models, and that's really something else we changed. There were 17 different menus when I walked in the door a year ago. Now we have two. So that's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of work and infrastructure for supply chain and everyone to manage
Correct.
those and
Hmm.
keep track of them
Yep.
for sure.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Favorite part of the episode is the personalities in this industry. We're all so unique in the background. So I want to get into some personal questions. The first one would be if you could go back and give yourself advice as you first started your career, what would it be?
Slow down. No. Well, I think it would be if you look at that. question. You say, okay, if you knew now what you knew then, how much more successful would you be? And I think it's an easy way to say slow down, but it would really be to really, sometimes as a young operator that's looking to be the best, it's kind of ready, fire, aim, versus the reverse. And I think that that would be the best thing is I'd probably tell myself to slow down a little bit, observe a little more, and learn a little more before you speak.
When you were in elementary school, what did you want to do when you grew up?
Well, my uncle was in law enforcement, and I always thought it was just so exciting every time I speak to him about all the things he had to deal with, which today I don't find as exciting. But I was interested in really, whether it was, detective, law, becoming a lawyer. I was always so intrigued back then. And I actually went to school. Um, when I was going to school, I actually did study some law, and I still find it super intriguing. But it was something that really caught my eye early on.
Okay, so going from law, studying some law in school, how'd you end up in the hospitality industry?
Fell in love with it. It was putting myself through school. You always find a way to support yourself. And I started working at a restaurant, wasn't the best at being a server. I tend to start directing people, made the managers feel uncomfortable. So, fast forward, I was offered a dining room manager job at a small restaurant locally where I was, paying the bills and going through junior college. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the energy, fell in love with dealing with the people, and I just fit like a glove. And in order to actually be in this business long term and actually be successful in this business long term, you have to love it because it is more hours than any other you know occupation out there, right? And you have to love what you're doing.
For sure. What's your favorite activity when you're not working?
Not working, well, I love golf. I don't know if it loves me as much as I love it. Some days are good, some days are not. If you tee off at 7 a.m., you hope you're done by 10 because then the phone starts ringing and then you lose track. But I do love golf. Love taking my son out golfing. I love going to sporting events with him. We're big football and baseball fans. So it's some sort of activity all the time, whether it's out on our own doing stuff or out watching other folks do stuff.
Okay, what's your favorite sports team? You mentioned big
Oh,
fan.
LA Rams, hands down. Yep. Uh,
Okay, and
Depressing loss against the Philadelphia Eagles this year. They had it. Could have
and
gone to the Super Bowl.
was that a Rams fan when they moved to LA, or were you a St. Louis
No.
Rams fan and just followed them?
My entire family, minus my mom, I have three brothers, were all Cowboys fans, and my dad was a Cowboys fan. And I remember in 1974, when I was very young, watching the Rams on TV, and my dad looking at me, going, "What are you doing?" I just fell in love with the team back then. I was the black sheep of the family because of that. But when they moved, I stuck with them, and when they came back, I stuck with them. And it's just, it's kind of. I always say your sports teams pick you, you don't pick them. So
Who's your favorite band or musician?
I love, I love Dave Miller Band, it's classics, but I also love Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I'll even throw in a little bit of Jack Johnson there. But that's the music that if you would catch me on my own listening to all the time.
Okay, and favorite concert? Is it from one of those bands or someone else?
The best concert I've ever been to, the best show was Madonna a million years ago. She was amazing. So different, but great concert.
Okay, from a traveling standpoint, what's your favorite city and or country to visit?
My favorite vacation I've ever been on has been down in Cabo. It's great. I've been down there many times as I was a young man to now, and it's just it started from when you're younger, running around and having fun, to now just going to the great resorts and relaxing. But it's still a great place that I always enjoy going to.
Okay, so beach destination is your happy place.
Yes, very much so. Grabbing a chair, sitting on the sand, and breathing.
Okay, what are you most proud of in your professional career?
I'm most proud of getting phone calls from people that I've worked with or worked for me over the years when they talk about how successful they've been. and every once in a while they'll tell you, you know, why, and it's exciting for me, it's always been exciting to see the impact that I've made on other people's lives. And I really try to focus on that now when I'm working with my new general managers and management teams out there, to really not underemphasize the impact they have on other people's lives. If they do a great job of working with the right people and developing them, they actually have an impact, and they actually have such an impact on their careers. And it's really great to talk to folks that I've kept in touch with. They'll tell you the specific time or the specific conversation or the shift where they really learned a lot and they appreciate it. And that's really the win for me, is just seeing everyone else around me be so much more successful. And you know, you always learn. You know, and I'm not saying anyone's perfect out there, but if you spend time with the right people, it pays dividends, and they really, you know, I appreciate hearing about that.
If you could have a beer or meal with anyone, dead or alive, that wasn't a family member, who would it be and why?
You know, I've always been intrigued with people's success stories out there and where they've come from. You know, one of the it might be because I'm a little partial being a Rams fan, but you know, watching the movie, the Kurt Warner movie, understanding where he came from and understanding how he went from some serious obscurity to actually, you know, the pinnacle, the top of, you know, the sport he was in, but well, everything he had gone through to get there. When he was a backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, he got cut because he was too afraid to go take a snap at practice. To go from that to being at the top of his position in the toughest sport out there, is just amazing. And just I loved hearing about what he did and how he persevered. It'd be great to sit down and have a beer with him and let him just talk for hours about it. I would love to hear that. So,
And finally, what's something most people don't know about you?
I'm an introvert. And when you're in the restaurant business, you can't be, right. You have to be out there. You have to be talking on a daily basis. Today, I have 4 meetings, and I have interaction with an entire staff. Some of them know me, some of them don't. You're on stage. So when you're in the restaurant, you're in the business, the hospitality business, you're always being watched by your staff and your team. You're on stage, so you have to really challenge yourself to be outgoing. When I'm not there, I'm quiet. I mean, I can't, my wife will always remind me and say, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you talk to people when you go to a party?" Because I'm a quiet person. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Randy. There's more of us out there. I'm the same way. All my studies, I should have been an engineer, an accountant.
Mm.
And,
Yes.
I'm like you. Whenever you're in that environment, you've got to be up, and especially in marketing as well, speaking on stage. But I
Yep.
just as soon would like a quiet night at home. I mean, I'm drained after conferences because, much like you being that introvert, it's not my
Yeah.
super comfort zone, but we got to do it for
Yep.
what we do.
Well, it's exciting to do it, and it's right to do it, and it feels good when you're doing it. But if you're not a natural, you're not a extrovert. It's draining. So when you're done, right? But I firmly believe anything you do, you give it your all, especially when in our business, in the hospitality business. But when if it's not natural, you take a break after you're done, right? So
Well, Randy, thank you so much, for taking the time today to join me, for this episode. I've really appreciated the time and the discussion. And again, love the background. It's one of the more exciting ones I've had on the podcast.
awesome, love it. Yeah, I could show you
And,
around. Awesome.
and thank you to everyone for joining us. And here's to celebrating the industry we love and serve. Until next time, stay hungry for success.